Yeah, so revolutionary greetings, comrades. Once again, feel most welcome to our Consciousness Study Group. Myself, I'm Pidgin Odimengu from Kenya. I'm part of the people who coordinate the Consciousness Study Group. Alongside, we have our sister Mary is here with us. Our chair, Brother Kwame, will not be able to join us for now. He wasn't there last week, but he is having some urgent issues he's attending to. But he's okay so far, but just that he will not be able to join us again today. But he's okay, whatever it is. So, welcome, Brother Davin. Welcome, Brother Jaranaki. Sister Chisomo, feel most welcome. Sister Mayra, Sister Portia, Brother Salma, and Brother Sawindok, feel most welcome. And yes, let's have a continuation of our reading. We've been reading a bit the history of Africa and how that has been affected by the West, the manipulation. Last time we were reading about slavery and how they were trying to justify enslavement and colonization. And today we are reading about the nation. So as usual, I'll request any of our member who is in a position or willing to read for us the text, then we can share our thoughts in regards to that. Thank you very much. And once again, full most welcome. Any of the member who is willing to read for us the text?
The history of a nation is unfortunately too easily written as the history of its dominant class. But if the history of a nation or a people cannot be found in the history of a class, how much less can the history of a continent be found in what it is not even part of, in what is not even a part of it, Europe. Africa cannot be validly, Africa cannot be validly treated merely as the space in which Europe swelled up. If African history is interpreted in terms of the interests of European merchandise and capital, missionary and administrators, it is no wonder that African nationalism is in the forms it takes regarded as a perversion and neocolonialism as a virtue.
Thank you very much, Sister Portia, for that. I'll have to take it up a bit to connect on what you were reading last time. And if somebody can be able to read for us that, not even the last paragraph. The paragraph before this last paragraph is very linked to this, and was the paragraph on the history. So probably somebody can read of us this paragraph starting with one of these subtle methods. Then we link it to the reading of the paragraph we are reading now. Anybody? Anybody who can read for us this paragraph starting with one of these subtle methods, or I can read it as well, if there's nobody willing. Now, I've picked this paragraph because it's the beginning of the history of Africa thing and history thing. Of course, the next paragraph went a bit on slavery and the society. This paragraph said that one of these subtle methods is to be found in the account of history. The history of Africa, as presented by the European scholars, have been encumbered with malicious myths. It was even denied that we were a historical people. It was said that whereas other continents had shaped history and determined its course, Africa had stood still, held down by inertia, that Africa was only propelled into history by the European contact. African history was therefore presented as an extension of European history. Hegel's authority was lent to this a historical hypothesis concerning Africa, which he himself unhappily helped to promote. and apologists of colonialism lost little time in seizing up it and writing wildly their own, in presenting the history of Africa as the history of the collapse of our traditional society in the presence of the European advent. Colonialism and imperialism employ the account of African history, anthropology as instruments of their oppressive ideology. And now we link to this paragraph you're reading today that says that the history of our nation.
Pigeon,
Yes.
are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me? Can anyone hear me?
Yes, King brother, we hear you, or I hear you.
Okay. Now I'm linking that paragraph to now this paragraph, which says that the history of a nation is unfortunately too easily written as the history of its dominant class. But if the history of a nation or of a people cannot be found in the history of a class, how much less can the history of a continent be found in what is not even a part of it, which is Europe? Africa cannot be vividly treated merely as the space in which Europe swelled up. If African history is interpreted in terms of the interest of European merchandise and capital, missionaries and administrators, it is no wonder that African nationalism is, in the forms it takes, regarded as a perversion and neocolonialism as a virtue. That's our reading. So who is willing to share their thoughts with us? Who is willing to go first?
Brother Pigeon, I'll go first.
Yes, Sister Nora.
Greetings, everyone. Thank you, Brother Pigeon. For me, reading this paragraph, it's saying that we have to destroy the myth that all our history was given to us by the Europeans, and we must start to deconstruct the neo-colonial institutes, and we must also go back to our roots and build upon our own indigenous foundations, rather than just copying and pasting systems and history that has been imposed on us. We must see ourselves through our own eyes and not through the eyes of the invaders. So for me, as you are reading it, the main thought that came to my mind is that we must break down these imposed systems that are not our own and somehow forge back our way to our own way. Because as read in previous chapter, or at the beginning of this chapter, that any philosophy or ideology has to be born out of the society and by the people that live in that society. It can't be imposed on the people from external sources. And so we must first of all recognize our history, recognize our identity, who we are, and then build from there. So my main takeaway for myself is that we need to dismantle neocolonial structures from everything, from politics, governance, education, health, everything, and rebuild in our own way and our own vision. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Mara. But Sister Mara,
Yes.
why do you think history is very important here? Because
Because
Nkrumah has been
if you
referring
don't
now
know,
for this history for several times.
if you don't know where you came from, they will tell you that you're savage. They will tell you that, oh, your spirituality is the devil. They will tell you anything and you believe it. But if you know your history, then you know yourself. There's a book by Naim Akbar. It's called Know Thyself. And in it, he says that any society needs to immunize itself from alien culture. How? By knowing themselves. History is a huge part of knowing ourselves. If we don't know ourselves, we'll be colonized again and again and again. And anything that comes in, the Chinese will come in now and say, oh, we are your friends. I'll be like, yes, they're our friends. The Russians will come in, oh, you know. So we must be rooted in ourselves. That's why it's important. It's an immunization against invasion and colonization of the mind and everything else that comes with that, with colonization.
Okay. Thank you, Sister Mara. Who is willing to go next? I'm not in the spirit of calling names. I will, but let me know who is willing to share their thoughts.
Can I go for
Elder Sam?
Yes, can I go?
Yes.
Yes, Brother Pigeon, just to add on what Sister Myra said, we know of the famous quote that emphasizes that a nation without history is like a tree without its roots. So history is important in that way. And in this passage, they are emphasizing not the dilemma, the situation that we find ourselves. You know, our history was not only diluted, it was not only distorted, it was not only broken, belittled, as we have learned previously. The worst thing is that it was done by people who came outside of this continent, Europeans. And like I said, in my history in South Africa, we have read that robbers, crooks, that were prisoners basically in Europe were put onto ships and they were going to be made to push those ships to go via the continents in search of what the Europeans wanted as well. And these are the people that landed on our shores. Those people were sick, they were dead, they were criminals. But those are the people that ended up owning our lands, owning our history, and even writing it in the manner that they wrote it. You know, we this is the history we were taught at school. I never knew about King Shaka, the great King Shaka in South Africa, before I knew the three ships that came on these shores carrying Europeans. Vasco da Gama from Portugal was somebody that we knew and we even sang about. And this is the poisonous flower of their dance that they fed us. And this is the essence of this. And if we go and try and answer the questions, it was not only because they dominated us, it is because they even cheated us of being ourselves. All the wealth that we have, all the history that we had already, you know, in our lands. The last time I talked of Zimbabweans, which is a huge place where people had developed in such a way that they built those buildings without mortar, but the bricks are still standing today. Here in the middle of South Africa, there's a place called Mapungubwe. In Mapungubwe, they were already smelting iron, they were already trading in gold and so forth. And these are the rich history that we have, that the Europeans destroyed and belittled us as people who were coming from a dark continent, as people who didn't even know who they are. And they didn't leave it there. They said, we cannot do anything. In South Africa, we have the story that the white people, especially after the British handed over to the Afrikaners always said, where am I standing? And they would answer, you are standing on top of a kefa, meaning an African person. And those are the humiliation and the distortion that the Europeans gave to us. But we have something. Always they say, whenever you have to go through that, you are, instead of dying in shame, we are always resilient people. We are always people that fight, develop skills to survive. And that's what we did. And this is where we must see that all this that is happening currently in our country, we must reject it with the contempt that it deserves. And we must be able to push the struggles of our forefathers, because it is those forebears that have resiliently made sure that we survive through this, and their history should not die. So we should be proud of that, and we should honor them day by day. And that's why I started by that quotation, because there's Marcus Garvey that said, that nation that does not have a history is like a tree that has no roots. Thank you.
Thank you, Elder Sam. Thank you very much for that. Anybody want to come in?
I'll come in. I'll go sentence by sentence, and then I'll give some comments. I have 1, 2, 3 comments after. So the first sentence is saying the ruling class, they are determining history. The second sentence is saying a history of a nation can't be found in a classroom. So don't expect a history of a continent to be found in what it's not part of. The third sentence is saying Africa cannot be validly treated from a European context. And the fourth sentence is saying if African history is interpreted in terms of European interests, and it gives examples like capital, missionaries, administrators. It says, if so, then it's no wonder why African nationalism is scoffed at. It's seen as something less than. And then neo-colonialism is embraced. So my 3 comments. I just left a audio message. I've been doing these audio messages on Dr. Carter Godwin Woodson's book titled, quote, The Miseducation of the Negro, end quote. And today was the wrap up. So the concluding day was today. And there were 2 paragraphs in his work that I said were an essence of what he was trying to say when I suggested it. Not that I have talked with him, yet I would suppose that those 2 paragraphs were an essence of what he was trying to say about the miseducation of the Negro. And so it's so fitting that on this day I was summarizing, now King Brother Pigeon has given this text. And so my first point is that just the parallels of what Dr. Kwame Nkrumah has written, and then what Dr. Woodson wrote. One was a paragraph that reading today, and then another was from 2 paragraphs from Dr. Woodson work. So that's one point. And then the second point that I keep grappling with, and I put this on to the floor to perhaps give some responses, is it a case of where we are as a Kibbulees over these hundreds of years, now now tilting to almost 1,000 years, is it a case that we are just in a situation where civilizations have successes and they have failures? So we Akibalanese, we had our time, and then now it's someone else's time. This is a question I have. And then the third point is a book by Tiffany, let me see, Tiffany Drayton. And she wrote, quote, Black American Refugee Escaping the Narcissism of the American Dream, end quote. The reason why I point to this is because I referenced this book in that audio message I was leaving today in various WhatsApp groups to which I'm affiliated. And I was saying that in a context arguably of the United States of America government or the culture or cultures, when seeing Akibalanese, it sees us from that narcissistic viewpoint. And mind you, I am not a mental health specialist or a medical professional. No way am I trying to say I am. I'm saying in a nascent reading of narcissism, it just appears like how the United States of America sees us Akibalanese is as its property, that we cannot exist without it. And so this is how I see all of this that has happened over these hundreds of years, going now into close to 1,000 years. And I would dare say now moving that over to where the United States of America was birthed, to which it was birthed from, is England. And England is in Europe. So we as Akibalanese are not seen as people. And then on top of that, through the education that we have received in these oppressive systems, we believe that. Now that goes to another point. Those of us who are aware, are conscious of this hoodwink, this scam, this hustle, these lies, that is still being far removed from people who are just struggling to pay their rent, to have food on their table, to go get a checkup, and etc. in the what the oppressive system has put them in this fix of not being able to look after themselves. So to wrap up, it is really, really disheartening. And I think we are further, even though we are resilient, we are so far away from where we were, which was in a healthy place. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Portia. Thank you for that. Let's go. Who goes next? Sawindok? Sawindok, can you hear me? Okay. Brother Divine? Brother Divine? Are you able to share your thoughts with us? Divine? Or Divine?
Hello, Brother PG, how are you?
I'm fine, brother. How are you?
I'm all right, I'm all right. I don't have much to share on this one, but I think the paragraph is clear that our history should not be of a dominant class. Like in this case, we have been dominated, and those who dominated us have been writing the history. And the history is being taken from their notes through their voyages to the continent. So what it means is that it's limited to an extent. Whatever the history that they have is not the true history of the continent. In other words, we need to find ourselves and to find exactly what our true history is all about. Because there's another part which is missing. It took the Europeans more than 1,000 years to dominate us. They've been studying us. Even up to today, we are still understudied by those people. That's why they've actually advanced to attack our DNA, because there's a lot to do about our DNA and our past and our ability as a people. So yeah, I think that's what I can say for now.
Thank you, Brother Dwayne. Thank you very much for that. Brother Awusu, Brother Ben Awusu.
Good evening, everyone.
Yeah, good evening.
A little bit late. But looking at what is being discussed, in fact, for me, I have been stressing that as Africans, the only way out is to write. Even if we don't write for this present generation, we have to write for posterity, because some of our predecessors today, our young people are reading history that we don't know where it comes from, or even those that say that, okay, these books were taken from Africa, but they've been distorted. I mean, anything that is a distortion actually is a lie. It doesn't carry anything for people to learn from such material. In fact, we need to be magical in able to decode certain things before you are able to understand what actually is happening. You see. But then, if we decide to write from our side in an Afrocentric manner, I believe that is where we are going to make the greater impact. You see, I always look back to my infancy, to this present time. And when I was, with age, I think 8, 10, 9 years there, I did love reading. But all the books I read were European. You talk of Cinderella and all the other things, books, Robin Hood, and you see a lot, so many of them. So at a point, in fact, I grew with Eurocentric mind. You see, it is high school that some of when we came to English literature, and then we were using more of these African writers. In fact, that is where things began to, I began to see the word also that, hey, there exists an African side of things, you see. And gradually, I have tried to become more African, you see. Yet, at least there will be still a bit of Eurocentric there, you see. So for me, if we begin to write, and by writing also, we need to, how do I put it, to decongest and to unlearn and relearn, so that our approach of writing will not conform to what they expect us to write, you see. And I always like what Steve Biko once said, that I write what I like, you see. So for me, let us write. There was it which year, 2010 or 2010? Yes, I approached my HOD at UKZN School of Politics here, And I told him that, look, why we can't research into, economic history of, oh no, there are no materials. Materials don't exist. But later on, I found that there's so much than we can even imagine, and think of are there, you see. So more or less, we some of our own scholars and academics also are standing in the way because their interest and leaning to the West is so strong. Probably they admire them. But if some of us that can see things the way we have been talking, if we start to write, I mean, we don't write because we have been to university or so. There are so many people that have read their books that they never even been to university, but you could feel the energy of being an African in those writings. So that is what I would want to contribute at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Rosso. Thank you very much. Sister Grace?
Yes, I thought I'd speak before my battery dies. I'm on the road. I'll log back in when I get in. Yes, no, I just wanted to say, as I'm listening to people speak and the paragraph, and I'm thinking, will they ever leave us alone? I don't think so. They have a lot of interest, they have a lot to lose. So they'll keep on oppressing, directing us. And for as long as we rely on them, that doesn't help either. So I've, like the previous speaker has spoken and several others, and I've always said this, I never studied history for the same reason. I did my primary and secondary school in Africa. The history, like the last speaker said, it's all about Cinderella, Snow White. It's all, and you're forcing yourself to participate in these plays. You're doing drama. It's about Cinderella. It's about Snow White. And you've never seen these things, and you're imagining in your head. So you're just imagining, you're acting, you're going along with it. You're just imagining. It doesn't apply to anything you're studying or your life or anything. And they write, we read. They write, we read. They study us. We study what they've studied about us, and we believe it, and we go along with it, decades after centuries after centuries after centuries, adopting their systems. You try, and now that I'm becoming wiser, and I'm becoming wiser through these groups, because I'll never learn what I learned through these groups. In a classroom, in a university, in a whatever their settings, the European version of what they want us to practice. I've even withdrawn from 3 times of my PhD because you have to stick to what they want you to research on, publish on. If you suggest anything, they'll twist you to say, why don't you do this? There's always an excuse as to why you can't write about what you want to write about. So we've now got AI, we've now got all these other things. You still want to write about something or research through your AI tools, it's still not giving you the correct version of Africa. And if you research, even sometimes in the beginning, it would bluntly say to you, it's against our policy. You're breaching community, this and that, simply because either it can't find the material or they just don't want to promote us. So we just have to keep writing. We have to keep publishing until AI is studying now our own material and start writing. It's kind of improving because a lot of people obviously are putting things out there, and some, but still it's struggling. Why is it struggling? Because there's no material written by ourselves, but them. So the more we rewrite things, we put ourselves, our own stuff out there, and they'll keep fighting us, but we have to keep going. That's what I can say for now, and then I'll come back when
Okay.
yes, thank you.
Thank you, Sister Grace. Brother also, do you want to come up on something?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I have launched a journal which is supposed to, in fact, we wouldn't want to publish even from a white person. And we want to look at it more in intangible aspects of our traditions, and yet we are open to publish anything, whether even in any African language. We want to publish those who will write purely in like Swahili, or I mean Chewa or Zulu, whichever language. We want to publish those things because these are the Western journals don't want to publish. At the same time, also, they will even tell you to remove certain things, which actually will reduce the impact that the paper is supposed to have. You see, we are trying to seek affiliation with some of our universities, but we are not going to allow them to dictate to us. And I think one of the universities which is taking a step in decolonization, Durban University of Technology, we are trying to have some experiment with them. And for that matter, if any person wants to write, if you, I think I send our website to Brother Pigeon. If you contact him, maybe he can let you have it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sawindok?
Yeah, greetings, everybody. I hope my lines have now stabilized. But
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
it was breaking all the time, but I was wondering if I have heard Brother Sam well when he said the Europeans that were shipped to Africa were the crooks, the criminals, the most corrupt, their prisoners, the most evil. If it was the case,
That's true.
if it is the case, then that's no wonder how the Europeans are undermining us, how they don't fear us, how they don't respect us. They could have been deliberately chosen that we will choose the most evil. They will undermine those people at their best. And Brother Divine said, Europeans advanced to attack our DNA. Is our DNA distorted? While we are still there, I wanted to understand the very last sentence, but the second last line. It is no wonder that African nationalism is in the forms it takes, regarded as a perversion and neocolonialism as a virtue. So is African nationalism, the form it is in now, a perversion of what it ought to be? Oof. My line is gone again. Is it back?
No, you're
Brother
good.
Fiji?
You're good. You're good.
I stopped there.
Okay. Thank you. Jeraninaki, are you in? Because I want us to delve deeper a bit into this text and be very intentional line by line, because there are so many words I realize have been hidden here in this text that we need to unpack slowly. It's a very short text, but it's very heavy text. So one of the few things I get from this text, and I think I'd shared them also in the questions that I do attach, is that first sentence. That first sentence says that the history of a nation, unfortunately, the word unfortunately, and too easily written as the history of its dominant class. In this case, what do you think this dominant class refers to? And leave alone in the context of the colonial, we can point out at the colonialism, but even in the current context of neocolonialism, who might be this dominant class refers to? I know we've learned about no dominant class sometimes back. Sister Portia?
I didn't see, because I agree we should take these sentences line by line. I did not see him saying, Dr. Nkrumah, to any particular region. He just said it plainly that history of a nation is determined by a ruling class. That's why I found this first sentence so important.
Yes. So in this context, now that you're coming in, Sister Portia, on that, now, for a long time, we know who was the dominant class in Africa. There were, of course,
Sorry, Brother Pigeon.
yes.
Maybe I'm confused by semantics a little bit here. The ruling class and dominant class, are they the
Yes,
same?
the same.
Thank you.
They're the same because it's not that they are majority in terms of population, but they dominate the tools for society. They dominate whatever power, economics, and the rest. So they become the dominant class, not in terms of their number, but in terms of their control in a society. Now, even if you look at the whites during colonialism, they are not majority, but they're the dominant class. Look, for example, in South Africa. The whites in South Africa are not the majority, but they're the dominant class. But the key thing here is, how does the dominance of a single class distort national history? Because Nkrumah says, unfortunately. When he talks about unfortunately, how do this class then affect or distort the history of a nation? What do you think?
It
Anybody
is simply
think about it?
because they write. It is
Because they
simply
lie.
because they write.
Yeah, it's true, because
They write.
they say that Sawindok.
Yes. They write
Yeah, it's
and
true
they
because,
lie.
yes, I get you. They say if you are to give a wolf or a lion to write the history about the goats or the sheep, what history would the lion write about the sheep? Now, unfortunately, even if you look at the history, or not even the history, the current context of many African countries, it depends on which source are you getting the information. So if you ask the rich people about how Kenya is, or even the rich South Africans, they'll tell you how it's a good country. It's a very developed country, very rich country. Things are moving. We are in a fast or developed country or developing countries. But if you take that information that South Africa is a very developed country, as we know, and use that to judge South Africans, then you might not be doing proper justice to South Africa. Because in that same context, that's a lie. And what does lie? How do lie affect a society? Because, for example, the white man has written about our history of Africa. And in fact, to them, Africa history starts by them coming in. And that's what we've read in the previous chapters. That by them coming into Africa is the beginning of Africa. How do this lie affect us as a people and the generations that read the same lie? Brother Usu, I see your hand is up. Welcome, Brother Coco. Brother Usu, I'm trying to share my
thank
thoughts.
you.
I'm trying to share my
Thank
thoughts,
you.
but also engaging members because I was sharing my thoughts, but I'm also engaging members. Brother Usu?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Um, you see, was it yesterday or 2 days ago? There is a Facebook friend. He's a British guy. He's been to Africa for some time, but he's always trying to say that we are not developed, or unless it's more like unless we depend on Europe. But then yesterday I asked him, "What do you mean by development? Do you mean development means that we should be like Europe, build like Europe? I mean, the way you people have designed your environment. You see, I have been to Europe, but the point is, I never felt like I have to live there because personally, some people may dispute, but I never saw any beauty. The way I look at a place like Berlin, and you find a sea of buildings, but the way they are, I couldn't have that breath. You see, the way when I'm in Africa, trees and I mean the way I look at the way we do things. So what I told him is that you know that there are Africans in Europe who still have that nostalgia for their rural areas that they come from. And ask yourself why they like those places. And even and as much as they are there, they come back to visit. Why? They want to feel the environment they left. You see, at a point, I explained to you that if we want to define development, every sense of development should come out from the context own way or perception of what they see as development. Um, if you look at, I think was it sister the one in Zimbabwe, what's her name? She mentioned
Yes,
something
yes.
about these Tanzanian people who have been, I mean, giving this, I mean, this Stone Age type of people they've been putting on Facebook. But you see, one thing I also argue about that those I mean videos is that look, you have children who are eating meat, and the people are living in the urban areas. They don't even get meat to eat. So the fact that they are dirty or they are looking somehow sloppy, I know it may be some kind of exaggeration, but you see, every village in Africa, people have their goats, they have their sheep, they have their chicken, they have their land. The fact that the person is living in a mud house, I personally I don't accept that as development because I have worked with rural people in Ghana, northern Ghana before. If anybody knows about northern Ghana, and it is one of the areas World Bank said that it's among the poorest of the poor. You see, but when I went there with the mind of our starving Ghana kind of mentality, but after living there for 9 years, I began to understand them. And one day I asked the people, I told them that they are poor. But you know what they responded to me? You told me that they are not poor. And they said, how do you define poor? And the way they define poor to me, it changed my view, excuse me, it changed my view so much that when I came here to do my honors and later on to do my masters. In fact, it impacted the way I did my research. So the whole thing comes to whose development do we follow? And how do we also
Yes,
define our development that would guide and shape even our public policies and the rest? This is some of the
yes.
things I feel like our academics and researchers should work on. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Brother Usu. I was using a development as an example. For example, the whites write about Africa being a dark continent. They say we were not civilized. They say all sorts of things. But now through the writings and the book, we are realizing we were civilized. The question here is, if the dominant writes the history of a nation, which Nkrumah says, unfortunately, It means that writing will speak to the interests of the dominant class. Now, how do the other class ensure that their voice is also shared so that the people can write and know the true history? And actually, the true history of a people is of the majority. And most of the time, the dominant class is the minority. And you have said very well, Brother Usu, that this must be through writing. We started what we call the CSG Pan-African Library. And because there was an argument and debate that Africans don't write, I'd rather say Africans don't read. Because after doing just a 4-month program of myself going every day to look for books written by Africans or about Africa, I was able to download over 7,800 books written by Africans. Not even today, back then. But that culture of writing disappeared somewhere and somehow. In fact, I could say that the generation of either early 2000 moving forward have done less writing than the generations before. If you look, for example, the people like Nkrumah could write about what they were experiencing. They wrote this book, Nkrumah wrote this book, amongst many other books. Sekou Toure wrote many other books. Marcus Garvey wrote his ideas. Malcolm X penned his ideas. But today, even the so-called big names we know in the Pan-African, how many books have they written? How many? People will say they will speak, and maybe young generation will watch their videos on YouTube and teach themselves. But until it's written, it will always be forgotten. So it's a challenge to us. Because I remember the first presidents of Africa, most of them decided to write about their country so that they could counter the narrative that the whites were writing about their countries. And I think, Brother Usu, this is one of the initiatives that we must push forward. Ngugi wa Thiong'o went extra mile, not only to write, but now to write in his mother tongue, which is the next conscious level of writing. And you've said that we need to do our publications and our writings in our languages. Because the more we write in their languages, there's also what you lose in that. But let's look at the second paragraph, because I also still sharing my thoughts and allow other members to come. I'll be very brief. This next sentence says that, but if the history of a nation or of a people cannot be found in the history of a class, how much less can the history of a continent be found in what is not even a part of it, which is in Europe? There is a problem when European writes about our history. And if the history of our people cannot be found in that history that is written by the dominant class, the history of Africans, the history of ourselves cannot be found in the history written by the dominant class, then how can the history of Africa can be claimed to even be written by European or Europe? What, to my question here is, what is the problem if we view African history through European lens? And the answer is very automatic. That's going to be bias. It tends to serve the whites. It tends to pacify whatever they wrote or whatever they did as enslavement, colonialism, what they call missionary things, as something that was holy enough and as something that was justifiable enough. And that actually tried to cover all the deaths we encountered during enslavement, all the oppression, looting, and killing we went through during colonialism, because they want to write how they help us. When in reality, they destroyed us. Now, in the second sentence, which I'm also going to share my thinking on in the third sentence, it says that Africa cannot be validly treated merely as a space in which Europe swelled up. Now, Why is Nkrumah using the word, or why is Nkrumah, or what do Nkrumah mean here by this term, a space? Anybody who can help me there? When Nkrumah said that Africa cannot be validly treated merely as a space in which Europe swelled up. Who
Can I
understand the
try?
meaning of that text? Yes, Sawino.
Yeah, Africa cannot be treated merely like a space. It is not a space. It is a home to people. It is a place that belongs to people. A space is something that is traditionally empty, something that technically is not owned or occupied by someone. That is my understanding. So that respect must be there, that Africa belongs to Africans and not just a place nullius where there is nothing, where Europe has swelled up, where Europe has flocked to in numbers. Maybe that's my 5 cents on it.
Thank you. Anybody else want to come in on this?
Hello, Brother Pigeon. Can I come in there?
Yes, please come in.
I think the fact that Kwame wrote about Africa being a space swallowed up by Europe, I think during his time, it's clear that Africa is being treated as a space. So, in other words, it's now up to us now to correct that narrative, because according to them, we are a space which they occupied. And the other thing that I wanted to put into my contribution is about the dominant class. The dominant class is actually the system that they were using during colonialism, and also the system that continued after colonialism. We talk of politics today. Politics has never been the system of Africa, but it's a system that Africa inherited from the colonizers. And it has remained a dominant class within our continent. Yeah, I think that's what I can say.
Okay.
Mm.
Thank you. Now, my concern is, how is this perspective shaped colonial and even post-colonial policies? If Europe could see Africa as a space, how did that then affect the policy that they came in with?
The thing that is creating the space, because if you look at it from my point of view, because I think the Dutch law that was imposed on the continent has actually created the space then, and it's continuously creating that space today, because it is the laws that perpetuate, or that is protecting what has been stolen from us. Their law is protecting them from it's actually denying us to claim back what they've stolen from us because of that law. So imagine if we factor out the Dutch law and impose our African laws. Will they continue to occupy that space that we are talking about? Because it's the law that is creating that space within us.
Thank you. Anybody want to come in on this?
Can I come in?
Yes, Alassane?
Yes, brother Pigeon, I think the two brothers have already said most of what I want to say, but I think space is basically the emphasis that this is where they can do whatever they like. They don't care. This is a space that is unoccupied, a space not owned by anybody. They can come here and take the people like when they did during the slavery era. These were not non-human. These were animals that could be dragged, jam-packed into those ships of theirs and mistreated all over the shore to go and use them in plantations wherever they go. And you know, the worst part is even when they knew that there's wealth, gold and diamond, they still regarded it as their own, not belong to the people. And that is why we cannot do away with our thing, our struggle for reparations as part of our self-actualizations, self-determination, and self-reliance. We need to claim and reclaim our birthright in totality. And if I emphasize this, it is because the current ruling classes want to put us into the doldrums of our own history. They want us to accept this thing that we were just an empty space. You know, in South Africa, and I'm not sure in other countries in Africa, in South Africa, the white claim to say there was nobody, the land was unoccupied. In fact, when they want to continue with their myth, they say, you were coming from the north. We Africans, we were coming from the north, and they were coming from the south, and we met in the middle in South Africa, which is not true. Our forefathers, our forebears, whom they call the Hottentot and the Sun, those were our forefathers. They are the inherited people, indigenous people of Africa. And this is where we must definitely fight with this empty space, which was owned by nobody. And you know, these issues went to nullifying, you know, even our ancestors. You know, King Shaka, when he was uniting the tribes in the Southern Africa, they said he was a barbaric. He was killing his own people. But that man was a nation builder. And we have managed to push here in South Africa that Shaka should be recognized as a warrior fighter who has not only developed his armies into real fighting armies, the strategies he employed, we have managed here in our colleges in the defense force to make sure that Shaka is seen as a strategist who developed warfare. You know, he changed with time. He changed his warrior fighters from fighting with a long spear to a short spear because he taught them the tactics, fitness, he taught them how to run. And he said to make sure that you are not a coward. You will have this short spear because you must face your enemy in the eyes. The white people even today will not accept. In 1879, the Zulus in South Africa defeated one of the mighty nations that claimed to be a mighty nation, the English, in the Battle of Isandlwana, totally beaten and so this is the history that we must fight for. This is the history that we must unmask that says this was an empty continent, a space for everything. And you know, they use it even worse. These wars that they push, these coups that they do, they use them to manipulate us in buying their weapons, in testing their weapons, and so forth. All those things to say they want to continue to say this is an empty space where they can do whatever they like. Thank you.
No, thank you. I'll come to Sister Posh on that. And Brother Sister Ida, I'll come to you once I'm done with my thoughts. And I think Brother Coco was in, I think he has left. Now, I did a presentation here on what you call the papal bull, Doom verses of 1452. And That was under what you call the doctrine of discovery. Now, there was an order, the Papal Bull of 1452. Actually, the order was which introduced in legal terms what you call the terra nullius. The terra nullius or terra nullius is been used in legal framework and has been challenged several, now been acceptable. It says that terra nullius means that no man's land. It introduced the word no man's land. Now, in that doctrine, when they were writing it, I think the order that was then given to those so-called missionaries and the explorers then was that go to a territory, and a territory that is occupied by pagans. The word was pagans, which means those who do not accept either Christianity should be considered a no man's land. And the order was very clear. If you go on Google and Google the Papal Bull of 1452, the orders were given very clear that go destroy and let me just get it. There's a word they used. So the first thing is that when they say the land is of no man and we were men there, so who are we? Which then leads to them saying it's a space. So even with our existence, they couldn't view us as beings enough. That was an empty space to them. And I think this is the foundation. We then give them the power to start now dividing that territory in the colonialism as a free space without consulting the people who are the occupiers of the land. In fact, in 1455, Pope Nicholas V issued what he called the Papal Bull, the Roman Pontifex, authorizing the Portuguese king to capture, vanquish, and subdue enemies of Christ and to rescue their persons to perpetual slavery. To reduce, not to rescue, to reduce their persons to perpetual slavery. This was the first of the papal bulls of discovery, orders by the infallible Pope to enslave, spoliate, and subjugate because non-Christians were heathens. There's an element of the word subjugate that we learned in the last class. Now, this is very important where we are coming in. Because when you consider a place as a space, what do you do with it? You share it amongst yourself. So they sat down later on to divide Africa amongst themselves because it was a space. And that meant that they never treated us as human beings. And that's when they led us to what they call the slavery and the enslavement and everything they did. Now, as I am trying to bring this conversation, is that there are authors who have come out to tell who we were before they came and what we did, and in fact, how we contributed to the world. But my last sentence, which I'm going to contribute to, is this one that says that if African history is interpreted in terms of the interest of European merchandise and capital, missionaries and administrators, it is no wonder that African nationalism is in the forms it takes, regarded as a perversion, and neocolonialism as a virtue. Now, the most important thing I want to ask is, now we talk of missionaries, that is religion, capital and merchandise, that is economics. So how European economic and religious influence the perception of African nationalism? Because then there's a very important thing here that's coming with nationalism. And we've been learning about nationalism all along. And why do you think nationalism is being labeled as perversion by colonial powers? And in what ways does neocolonialism continue to be framed as a virtue? I want to hear people's opinion on this. How did this European economic and religious influence or interest actually influence the perception of our African nationalism? And why is it labeled as perversion and a virtue in this context? Anybody who's willing to share their thoughts? This is what I'll be ending with.
King Brother Pigeon, I wanted to come in.
Sister Portia, sorry, your hand was up. Sorry, yes, go ahead.
No problem. I just want to say thank you for taking us line by line. I want to say that again. It's very important. So I want to go back to something I said earlier. I said in my audio message that I share within WhatsApp groups to which I'm affiliated, I talked about the point of narcissism and that I am no way saying I'm a medical professional and I wouldn't do so. I was saying in my nascent reading of narcissism, and from that book that sister I mentioned, and let me say her book again. Pardon me, I have it written here. Tiffany Drayton, quote, Black American refugee escaping the narcissism of the American dream, end quote. From her reading, she sparked this. I said, oh, that is it. They, the oppressors, even I hate using that word, the article the, as if there's some mysterious group. And this is why I like to name them. France, Belgium, Germany, Portugal, United States of America, Germany. Did I miss any? They did not see, I said Portugal. They did not see us as their equal. So if and when you think of, if you read up on narcissism, one of the key points of a characteristics of a narcissist, they say the narcissist only interacts with a person based on what they can get out. So that's they see you. Another characteristic is that narcissist sees you as their property. So I said, oh, this sister is onto something. So now, even though it's still totally confusing, I could see then how the said countries came into other kingdoms in Africa, Kibalon, and did what they did because they saw it, allegedly, us as property. And they only pick us up and down. They only pick us up and down when we are serving their interests, which goes back to Dr. Nkrumah's text, where he said, capital missionary administrators. So I just want to re-say that point again. And then the other point is I saw a while ago, because I like watching series, I saw this series called The Sun, quote, The Sun. And in this series, it's out of the United States of America. Close to the end of the series, this main character had made a deal with the indigenous people of the United States of America because there was oil. They had, both of them had gotten oil. And I'm fast forwarding on purpose. Anyway, at that segment, this main character, who was of European heritage, he changed the agreement. How many times have we in Africa gotten into agreements with countries in Europe, allegedly, and they have changed the agreement? So he changed the agreement and ended up taking the oil that was on these indigenous people's land. So this has been done over and over and over again. I say all of that to say is that if we course don't justify any oppression, and I'm not in any way doing it. It's just that you can see a behavior of any person, and you use that as a measuring of, okay, I can trust this person with this, I can't trust this person with this. The behavior dictates the trust.
Thank you.
And then the last point is about education. I said it earlier, and I have heard all of the elders, and even I heard the Queen's sister say it. The education we got as a Keebalanese, that of course was linked to the oppression. We up here getting PhDs, we getting masters, we getting all kinds of degrees. And those degrees have done what for us, by and large? I'll stop there. Thank you, King.
Thank you, Sister Portia. I want to engage Elder Sam on that my thought I was asking. Elder Sam.
Brother Pedro.
Yeah, this paragraph I was reading to share my thoughts. The word African nationalism is mentioned here.
Yeah.
Now, I know you might be having the rootings on the backgrounds when this so-called nationalism started in. And you see, Nkrumah says, if African history was to be interpreted in the lenses of European, then no wonder that African nationalism was viewed or regarded as a perversion and neocolonialism perceived as a virtue. What do you think about that, Elder Sam?
Yes, Brother Pedro and members on the platform. You know, for me, it is easily understood. The interest of the Europeans is to see this continent as this empty space of non-human people that owns nothing, have no mind of their own, cannot do anything by themselves, and they can do anything through us. And this is the perversion, this is the distortion that will perpetually keep us in our place, in check, not even daring to take a step into freedom. And this is the perversion, this is the distortion. If you keep it that way, the missionaries also added, if you follow the missionaries, they came to tell us that we must not even look for happiness and fulfillment here. Everything will get beyond our lives after death. And those things keep you docile, keep you under check. You cannot even raise a finger. And this is the distortion that we need to see through. And the neocolonialism part is that even if they have given you this so-called freedom, which is not real freedom, they have just moved out from the former colony. They have gone back to Europe, but they've left everything in place. The people who are here are just administrators. They're just representatives of the colonial master. And last week, we discussed how Trump is treating our leaders when they go to America, because they go there cap in hand. They are not liberated mentally. And this is where this perversion and distortion is seen. You know, African nationalism, as was seen by people like Kwame Nkrumah, and in our case in South Africa, Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe, where they said Africa must be for the Africans, and Africa must be a united Africa. That Africa must be that one that does not recognize any race. There should be no race in plural form. We must just be one human race. And if you come into South Africa, you will not even hear of Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe. They will give you all those people that continue to praise the foreign domination, that allows foreign domination to continue. And people like Sobukwe and Steve Biko, you'll hear very little about them. That is where the perversion is. And to keep neocolonialism as a virtue, you know, to say this is a virtue, this is a good thing when we know that colonialism is not a virtue, it is actually destroying the goodness of us. So, but if it is perverted and the people that are there administering it, like we are facing currently in South Africa, you know, just now as we speak, the ruling party is fighting left, right, and hook and center to stay in power. But have they liberated the country? No, the majority of our people are still as oppressed as if the former colonialists are still in power. Thank you.
Now, thank you, Elder Sam, but I think somebody will come in and pick this. I'm trying to point it out. The current struggle we have today is the struggle between African nationalism and neocolonialism, where we have African states today also think that depending on the West, reporting to West, borrowing from West, asking food for West, going to ask money for West is the way forward. And they think that's a virtue. And majority of the countries in the continent is the same way. We went to ask money for whatever IMF has released what, or experts from what is coming, or development or political advice, or we are going to study where you are within your colonialism. They don't know it, but that's neocolonial mentality vis-a-vis the African nationalism. Those who think that Africa can develop, those who think that Africa has the resources, those who think that we must not depend on the West, those who think that we can move forward as we want, are really not treated well. Look at what even Burkina Faso Traore is trying to do. It's embracing African nationalism. Africanism is thinking and building his country based on what they have. But people say, oh, you cannot be against the West, oh, you must not develop. I think the biggest struggle we have today is those who think African nationalism is like perversion and those who think neocolonialism is a virtue. And unfortunately, majority of our leadership think that neocolonialism is a virtue. So Elder Sam, do you want to speak on that, or I'll bring Sawindok in?
No, thanks.
Okay, Sawindok, your hand was up. And after Sawindok, I'll be going to...
Yes, it was up, and I've got...
Yes, Sawindok, go ahead.
And I've got a question or two.
Yes.
The perception of perversion is from the perspective of who?
That's a good question.
Is it from the European perspective or the African perspective?
But I think it's from both lenses.
That is the first. And a comment on the neocolonialism. And the neocolonialism as a virtue is like, I don't understand it, but I want to understand it that from colonialism to neocolonialism, the Europeans have helped civilize us, because in fact they found us in terra nullius. So they could have helped civilize Africa.
Sawindok.
I rest it there.
Sawindok. Sawindok. Okay. If
Yes.
Sawindok can hear me, I'm very interested on your last comment. Are you meaning that they help civilize us, or are you doing it like a mockery?
No, that is the perception that I get out of it.
Okay,
that
thank you.
Europe has civilized us. That's
okay,
how,
thank you.
how they see it.
Now, Sawindok, this African nationalism being a perversion is both from Europe and Africans currently. And neocolonialism is a virtue, is also both from Europe and African currently, especially the majority of the leadership, and not even the leadership, the Africans themselves. Because if you go and live and buy your good clothes from Italy and brag for people on how you have an Italian suit and whatever, is that not neocolonialism? When you embrace the good music sung by the whites and sit down and say it's a country music and enjoy it slowly, mentally, is that not neocolonialism? When you think that the only place you want to go have an holiday is Dubai and not Zanzibar, not South Africa, is that not neocolonialism? So when you think that those which appears to be neocolonialism is the best thing to do, then silently, knowing or unknowingly, you're treating neocolonialism as a virtue. To the whites, as you've said, former colonizers, they think that they helped us a bit in colonialism. And even in neocolonialism, they think it's a good thing by trying to give us loan that they demand so many interest back. And actually, they just don't loan us. How do you loan somebody you stole from? That's not a loan. So that is, to my thinking, is a mentality of both sides up to date. But let me hear what others have to think. But first of all, General Nunaki had not shared his thoughts. If he's here, then I'll open up the floor for Sister Ida. Oh, Sister Ida is also here. So let me check. General Nunaki and Sister Ida. Any of you who can go first, then we can open the floor for some few minutes for us to wind up this conversation today. Sister Ida.
I'm here and I'm listening. I can't fully remember what the topic is. I have read what is in the book, and I hear us discussing things to do with colonialism and neocolonialism, but I haven't fully come to grips with what I can contribute. So I'll just continue listening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Colonialism and neocolonialism is existing in this text as well. The last sentence of the text. Okay. Nunaki?
Yes, give thanks, Son of the League, blessed. Thanks to the family at large this time, this prestigious group. Yeah. Yeah, man, you pretty much said everything I wanted to say, but what I will say is that it is true that the rulers will obviously narrate the story of the conquered, just as they erase the true Egyptian history after the fall of Egypt 2,300 years ago. So, yeah, it's true. And what's happening now is also part of their plan as well, but it's not as they planned it to be. Because of we've figured out the real narrative of Africa. And that's why now they're having it hard to control all 54 countries of Africa now, because of there are sources that leaked that were not supposed to leak according to them. And we did find out that actually the black people are the creators of everything. So that alone has somewhat brought a crack to the white system. And that is why we had Brexit. That is why now UK is in shambles. I think black people are going to have to get out of UK soon. There's a lot happening, man, regarding the last sentence that you say, it is no wonder that African nationalism in the forms it takes regarded as perversion. Yeah, it's what I'm saying exactly. Our shamans, our herbal doctors, our, as I said, the shamans and all these people that are using ancient African science, they have been perverted and their information has been nullified, you see. But now, as we see, as I'm saying, that we see the fall of white supremacy in the global setting. Now they are trying to incorporate African indigenous science and what, giving Pan-Africanist, so-called Pan-Africanist platforms on mainstream media just to push a certain narrative, because they know all the youths, black youths, are just looking for content that has to do with Pan-Africanism. So they're just sending this bourgeoisie to France, talk about Africa, and not actually doing anything about Africa. So is that perversion, that thing of perversion and neo-colonialism they did, is just a projection of our work. And as you said, my brother, their work, it's as if their work is holy, it is good that they came and stuff, while we know that no, that is not the case. But the problem is that we know we have the knowledge, but if we do not apply the knowledge the right way, then it won't help. And that is what they are counting on, actually. They are aware of us. There are many of us having meetings. We're not the only one having online meetings, Pan-African meetings. But they're just waiting for those who actually going to build the industries like AES. That's when they will be coming for us. So yeah, as I close, I would just like to say that this sentence is very interesting, and I'm glad that we came to this chapter because it's part of the things I've been saying, that our African history must be revisited, because the one we've been given by our colonizers, that we come from the bush, blah blah blah, is not true. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Anunnaki, for pointing us to that. We are having 10 minutes to go, and I'll give each member a minute to say something as we wind up this conversation. I'll start by Elder Sam.
Brother PJ, I think it is important that we show again the perversion. You know, when you talk about African nationalism, already the colonialists and the neo-colonialists want to portray this as backwardness, not
Yes.
becoming internationally, not being progressive. No, proper African nationalism as was, and that's why Kwame Nkrumah brought it here. It was they that came with this virtue of African nationalism, and it must be pan-Africanist in outlook, in scope. It must talk about self-reliance of the African nation or nation continent. And it must inspire a thinking and progressiveness within the African society. And it must reject this myth that there's a superior race. It must be a thing that expels those things. And it must also have a vision to extend beyond this political control. It is narrow. We must see ourselves as this liberatory force. That means even our education, mentally we must develop, and spirituality. And as we say, it must be inclusive of all members of the continent. Thank you.
Thank you, Elder Sam. Sister Myra.
Thank you, Brother Pigeon. I really couldn't top anything that has been shared by all the comrades, so I'll just say thanks everyone for sharing.
Thank you. Brother Divine, your last word, a minute on this text. Brother Divine.
Oh, thank you, Brother Pigeon. I think what the paragraph is telling us to do is to focus the narrative in our African lenses, not through the Eurocentric lens. It is actually encouraging us and showing us where we are being tricked, and also what we should do. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Sister Portia.
Yes, sorry, I was trying to find this sentence. This is how I'm going to end. This is Dr. Carter Godwin Woodson's one of his words from, quote, The Miseducation of the Negro, end quote. Quote, it will hardly help a poisoned patient to give him a large dose of poison, end quote.
Thank you. Sawindok.
The onus is on us as Africans to correct the perversion of African history. And the only way to do that is for us to continue writing and demystifying the lies that they have created about African history. And there.
Thank you. Let's get to Brother Benny.
Okay, thank you. What I would say is let's write. Because they got us by what they wrote. Let us write to counter all of them. Today, there are a lot of information on social media, but nobody is writing. Let us write and publish.
Thank you. Let's get to, let me check my list. Brother Coco, I'll give you at least 5 minutes to say something as we come to an end of this. But let's hear what Sister Eda, do you have something now, Sister Eda? You're coming to an end? Okay, Sister Grace, what was your last word in a minute in regards to this paragraph?
Oh, yes, I'm just going to repeat. Let's write. No matter how small. YouTube has succeeded. To an extent, social media has succeeded, but we need to do the text side of things so that people who are not on social media can now read, research. Let's go into the research arena. Our class system is different from theirs, so they cannot say this class put us into that class. Our class system is different from their class system, full stop. So let's write, and do our research in country, stuff that's relevant to us. All these people with PhDs and masters and whatever, very few have the knowledge to apply on the continent. That's why Africa is still lagging despite so many educated people. Thank you.
Brother Coco, I know you've been struggling up and down, but I hope maybe 3 minutes might be good for you. Brother Coco?
Thank you, comrade. Thank you very much. I've missed a lot tonight, but I'm sure a lot has been covered. So I will take it from the recording. But in my own summary, there are about 3 sentences here which I can see are connected. And they are trying to say, Africa cannot only be used as a space where Europe became big. So in that sense, Europe found itself when it was compared with Africa. And Africa was made inferior compared to Europe. And the other sentence is it talks about no wonder that African nationalism is in the form that it takes, regarded as a perversion, and neo-colonialism as a virtue. So with African nationalism, we know what that means, because it's for us, it's for our own benefit. But because it's departing from the norm according to European lenses,
it is going to be regarded as perversion. And we also know what neocolonialism is. A state that's under neocolonialism looks normal, looks like it's under control, but it's not under control. Everything else is being directed from outside that state. And why he put this where he put it, he has always been saying that, especially when he confronted most of his peers at that time. He was always calling them neo-colonialist puppets, and nobody believed him. They thought he was a lunatic in a way. They said he was coming up with things that didn't exist. But this is the truth. It's a matter which we are wrestling with at the moment. The class struggle in Africa has facilitated neo-colonialist exploitation of the Africans by the Europeans. He continues that story, that narrative that our history was not directed from Africa, not from African lenses, not from the Afrocentric perspective, but from the Euro lenses. And it's for a reason. They had to benefit from it through neo-colonialism. I rest my case. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, comrades. It's been a very informative session with us today. And I do appreciate each one of us who has actually contributed to this conversation. As we always say, we don't end, we just pause there, because the reading continues. And I believe that we like the flow. We are trying to, by sharing our thinking, we are trying to critically also think and open up our mind. And that's why in our class, we encourage you to share your thinking. Not your opinion, not your understanding, your thinking. And I believe this is something we are getting, and there's something where we are heading. So with that, permit me to say that, thank you, Brother Coco. I saw your comment on our YouTube channel on the last recording of the previous week. Thank you for taking time at least to visit that channel, because we share this thing without filtration, without editing. We give it raw as it is. And the reason why we do that is because we want to share what we think with the world. And I'll encourage most of us, if you get that notification when I send it, please take time to go and look at it. On our recording, if you want to review something, please take time and do that. All these recordings for this week also will be available by next week. And all the recording of last week were uploaded yesterday. Please help us even share it, even if you don't want to listen to it again. And this Saturday, we are looking about the youth empowerment in Africa. And we encourage you to come in so that you can have the conversation as well. And yeah, with that, I want to say thank you. We have many books written by Africans, as I said before, in our Pan-African library. I've paused the uploading, but upon any request, we can add any material that is not available there. But I think 8,000 books are enough for us to do what we can for startup. But the challenge is here with us. Let's write. Let's write about our Africa. Let's write our narrative and let's put it on books. So with that, thank you, comrades, and let's meet again this Saturday. Brother Coco is having an event tomorrow. Brother Coco, yeah, I know it will be hosted by CSG. Please, just 1 minute about it as we end this.
As usual, we are on our journey where we are decolonizing. We all know what colonization has done for us. Nothing. It has led us to be afraid, fearful, and underutilizing our potential. So the session is another one of the Ubuntu sessions where we reach deep within ourselves and tap into our Ubuntu. And as how our ancestors used to do things, get to recognize our strength, our identity, our Africanness, our being, which has been taken or destroyed, and a sort of reclaiming our agency is important to remember that we are enough as we are. And I am because we are is the motto, not just the motto, is the pillar and the tenet of Ubuntu. So those who have the time, please do come along and I'm sure you'll be all benefit. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'll be sharing the link to that event tomorrow via broadcast list. So all of you will get it via your inbox directly, all of the members here. And I'll do that as soon as tomorrow, very early in the morning. I know Brother Coca has been sharing this. It will be hosted in our Zoom space from the same, is it 5:30 p.m. London time? We should be around
Correct.
7:30 p.m. Kenyan time, 6:30 p.m. Central African time. So let's look forward to that. Sister Grace, we are coming to an end. I'm just stopping the recording. Sister Grace.
Yeah, no, this is also to just say Malawi is celebrating Emperor Haile Selassie. So all the history about him and Malawi, what as it affects Malawi and the world. So it's being run by the Rastafarian community. So yeah, it will be online and it will also, but I think it's during the day. It might not conflict with Coco's.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
yes, thank you.
Please share with me the link so that I can share with all members in their inbox directly. So share with me the link. Thank you.